I'm just gonna see if I can turn off the waiting room, right? I think I just did it. All right, cool. I don't have to manage the waiting room. Welcome everybody, and thank you for the introduction from Nicole. I'm Allison Frenzel. I'm the Arts, Media, and Entertainment industry sector lead and the Youth Apprenticeship lead for the California Department of Education. And I'm here with two of my favorite colleagues to talk a little bit about the future of the creative economy and the work we're all doing, working real hard over the last several years to get this collaboration and coalition work done. So it takes a village, and you're going to hear a little bit about that effort and some of the pivots and thoughts that we've all been kind of working on. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and launch the deck. So just give me a second as I move this into presenter mode, share, and then present. Oops, should have started at the beginning, not the end of the deck. Okay, second. Wow, this whole situation with there we go. Sorry, I'm gonna have to go all the way back. Let's go back all the way to the beginning of the deck. There's a lot of obstructions in my view right now. So
you're doing great, Allison. We're sending you good energy.
Thank you. I'm just trying to. That is not what's supposed to happen. Give me 1 second. And I'm not quite sure what you see because there's, like I said, lots of obstructions in my deck right now. Okay, sorry, should have stopped recording. Give me 1 second. Try this again. We love Canva for decks. That's what we use clearly here. So thanks for your patience. And boom. All right, one more time. Oh my gosh, I just closed it. Sorry. Let me still share. I'm a mess. Adam and Gustavo, why don't you introduce yourselves while I'm working out the tech thing? This is why doing a presentation is challenging on a Saturday morning. Go ahead, Gustavo, why don't you just kick us off here?
Yeah, I'll kick us off here. And I just want to emphasize, Allison, you're doing a great job. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gustavo Herrera, and I'm the CEO of Arts for LA. For those of you who might not know Arts for LA, we are a network of about 75,000 arts advocates. There's over 200 arts and culture organizations from all across LA County that are members of Arts for LA, and our job is really to be an advocacy voice for artists, for creative workers, for arts and culture, as a sector, and make sure that arts are accessible to all. Adam.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Allison, for bearing the brunt of all the tech. You're doing a great job. I would have fallen apart a while ago. I'm Adam Fowler. I'm an economist at CVL Economics. We work on questions really that intersect workforce development, economic development, the creative economy. Super excited to be in conversation with these two brilliant individuals this morning and all the hard work they are doing to lead our state toward new opportunity and economic mobility for artists and a lot of our folks here in the state. So super excited to talk with you guys.
Great, thank you. Okay, and I got it figured out. So anyways, here we are. So what we're going to talk through today are some of the things that we've noticed in this space as we've been working through trying to find more jobs for humans, creative jobs. So ultimately, I think it's important to understand kind of the industry and cultural shifts that we've been observing and experiencing over the last 5 years. So when we embarked upon this journey in 2020, it was a booming creative economy. It was pre-strike, streaming wars really blew up job opportunities. The animation industry was booming in California. Film and production was at its top, like at a high pre-COVID, and even right coming out of COVID. And as things shifted, we started to notice work slowly leaving the state, especially in the film and television industry. And so we wanted to kind of talk through some of those industry shifts. And I'm going to go over this list, and Adam's going to dive into the data. So ultimately, there's been a significant growth in international markets, and with those international incentives for bringing production to different regions of the world. Even here in the US, states across the US have recognized the benefits of having tax incentive programs and have really, it's been kind of a very competitive landscape in terms of increased tax credit opportunities in places like Georgia and New Mexico and New York that California's tax credit program could just not compete with. There's been a significant, and this was actually starting prior to this administrative shift, but there's this elimination of DEIA departments we have been seeing since 2024, early 2024. We've also seen mass mid to high level layoffs across tech and entertainment, which makes it really hard to create pipeline initiatives for entry level workers when there's a huge unemployed skilled workforce. And we're seeing this extreme, like to its extreme now, I believe in LA, with the incumbent workers in the film and television production industry below the line. There were 2 strikes that really put a damper on production. And in that time, many producers and studios took work other places because they couldn't work here in California. We've seen a rise in the creator economy, which Adam's going to also dive into today, and kind of as I term, the existential threat of generative AI in the space, especially for entry-level workers. It is, ultimately in some spaces being used as a replacement technology. And then finally, the reduction of pipeline programs and entry-level positions that we've seen due to a lot of these factors. Oops. So Adam, I'm going to toss it to you for this slide to kind of talk through some of this.
Sure. That was a great tee up, I think. So I think when I'm thinking about some of these big questions in the first section of Alice, the deck, I mean, there definitely is an existential cloud that's been lingering over Hollywood and Los Angeles. The past few years have felt very heavy with different margins, shrinking margins, strikes. We've seen layoffs and a lot of, I think, creative uncertainty. What I do flag, the kind of economist's view that steps back, is it's not so much a collapse as a very serious reordering. Allison mentioned for a long time, we thought California was kind of the default place for a lot of this production activity to happen in entertainment. And other states and jurisdictions around the globe have seen and invested and really given us a run for our money. And so entertainment's strong, but I would say along with other artistic practices that have a digital component, the epicenter has been moving. And we've historically been a little bit complacent in California. I think at the statewide level, the policy is starting to shift a little bit. What the slides Allison's got pulled up here, I think, is really important and part of the story for if you're in Los Angeles or adjacent. We're a city that's like a legacy industry city. And so during periods of disruption, like legacy actors in any industry are often hard pressed to pivot and make changes because they're big, they're slow moving. It's hard to turn the wheel of bigger organizations. And what generally happens is that, smaller, more nimble, maybe more tech-enabled players move in and take up some of that market share. So part of LA too is that a lot of social platforms have rewritten a number of the rules. There's only so many hours in a day a human's eyes are open, and that they're awake. And so there are other things that are competing for that time other than just your television set or your theater tickets or things like that. So a lot of new things are competing for time. And so the other thing is that the relationship between audiences and producers has really changed. You can think about that for a long period of time being a one-way street. The theater in your town maybe curates a season. It's kind of pushing content one way. Television producers produce and distribute information, kind of push that out to you one way. And the audience was much more passive. A lot of the new platforms are very participatory, and audiences aren't just kind of consuming, they're interacting, curating, kind of remixing in a lot of different ways. And so a little bit of the Los Angeles stories that are kind of legacy players, the big 6 studios, have just been a little lead-footed, a little sluggish on kind of reading the room. The next slide Allison's pulled up here, and this is why I think everybody, especially if you're doing workforce, trying to find partnerships, is a lot of Los Angeles workforce and higher ed folks have had maybe some relationships with some of the kind of brand names going back to the 50s and 60s. So Paramount's, the big studios, maybe Warner Brothers, et cetera, et cetera. And this figure was just my attempt to kind of give those of us in LA who drive by buildings with these logos on them all the time a little bit of perspective. So you can see there the little satellite, and these are all to scale. So this is Q1 market cap. Warner Brothers is the little planet there to the side of Disney. You can see down Sony, the Comcast to the right. I won't go through the actual dollar amounts, but in terms of size, we've got to start thinking about, for a lot of these training programs and skill sets, who are the other players in the space that might be actually in a better position to fund, support, and think about this work over the long period of time. I think the final thing I would say is that there's 2 things that are true at once. A lot of the trend lines in Los Angeles are going down at the moment, and globally, the forecast for media, entertainment, et cetera, is still growing very strong. In part because a lot more humans are coming online around the globe, and that means there's more consumers for whatever kind of art you do. And so it's just going to be a different consumer base. It's not necessarily going to be a white Western consumer base over the next 10, 20, 30 years. It might not even be an English-speaking base. I think what's so interesting, if you look at my other slide deck, and I'll kick it back to you, Allison, I just flag, we're already starting to see kind of early signs of that global storytelling angle. And last year, for example, on Spotify, artists who generated over $1,000 in royalties, more than half of those folks, and $1,000 is a very low threshold, and I still think the statistic is even more powerful. Of those folks that generated over $1,000 in royalty, more than half of those royalties came from listeners outside of the artist's original country, and over half of those artists that generated at least 1,000 had collaborated with an artist from another country. In 2024, music, categories of music that had over $100 million in royalties were up to, I believe it was 8 different languages. So 8 different languages had music bringing in over 100 million in royalties. And I think that's up from just like 2 English and Spanish, like 2 or 3 years before. So almost across every artistic practice that has a kind of a digital or tradable or exportable component, you're really seeing that global reality hit hard. And I think, as I've said for a number of years, that's actually a strength of Los Angeles. Our people look a lot more like the world compared to other geographies. And so we're just in a period of real disruption. But the good thing is disruption is often the time when a lot of entrepreneurial folks who look different than the incumbents with power, can really carve out a lane for them to begin to build some economic mobility. So, Allison, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And I think, this audience is interesting for the virtual BRIC Summit because we know it's a global audience, but our perspective, just for context, is going to be pretty heavy on the California work. Just wanted to contextualize that a bit because we are all kind of rooted in the state and have, I work for the state government. Gustavo does deep advocacy work in Los Angeles. And so Adam has this more of a global perspective, which I think is really important to note, something he said, whereas this is a shifting landscape that is not necessarily centered where it's always been, in the heart of the media world, right? So we'll be considerate of our global audience here on the call, but just wanting to make sure everyone realizes that we're really speaking from our California perspective on this topic today. And so hopefully that makes it still relevant to the work you're all doing wherever in the world you exist. So I'm gonna move to the next slide. So ultimately, we've done some statewide things here, major overlapping collaborative coalition efforts to try and support and sustain the creative economy, specifically for our workforce. And, you know, one of the things that I think is important to note is people often conflate workforce development and economic development. And so we'll really start to kind of unpack that a bit today. They overlap. It's like a Venn diagram, but they're not always the same things, right? And we've been doing, let me say this, let me see how I say this. So the work we are doing is focused on workforce development. And often workforce development initiatives are, well, almost all the time, workforce development initiatives focus on where there's a huge workforce need. Like there's mass vacancies, we need to fill those vacancies. And so in the creative economy, which still people argue as how to define, there is and there's not so much a significant workforce need as there is a need for diverse storytellers, for diverse stories, for voices from all types of humans. And so our efforts have been a very unique kind of approach to workforce development. And so I wanted to state that as well. So these are some of the major cross-agency initiatives that I will credit the SB 628 for initiating. So in 2021, Senator Ben Allen and our friends, Californians for the Arts and Arts for LA and some other groups put together the SB 628, Senate Bill 628, which basically stated that the creative workforce is a statewide priority. And this is called the Creative Workforce Act of 2021. It was an unfunded mandate, meaning we are naming a thing. We are not necessarily putting money behind it, but we are absolutely going to try and figure out and study how we can keep and sustain and uplift our creative workforce in California. So the agencies that have contributed to this work are the governor's office, GoBiz, and that's through participation in our California Creative Economy Workgroup, as well as the California Jobs First Initiative. I did not add LWDA, the Labor and Workforce Development Agency's logo, because I haven't used it before, didn't ask for permission, but they are deeply embedded in this work with us. The AME Workforce Training Initiative, which is led by myself and the agency that I am employed by, which is the California Department of Education. And this is how I know all of the humans that are part of the BRIC ecosystem. The AME High Road Training Partnerships, which is the California Workforce Development Board and the LA Department of Economic Opportunity. And then the Creative Jobs Creative Impact Initiative, which has representatives from state and local government, as well as the arts ecosystem in Los Angeles, trying to solve for the local job creation needs. So this is like our village, and Gustavo, Adam, and I are on every single one of these journeys together with the BRIC Foundation and several of our other nonprofit partners. So it's exciting to know that it's not these siloed initiatives. There's not one agency working in, on a thing that another agency is also working on. We see that a lot in the education space. It's really cohesive, and we're really ensuring that the efforts come together to support all Californians with opportunities in creative sectors.
And Allison, can I just add one really quick thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me go back.
Because I do think that point is really important, the kind of collaboration that we have here in California through these various initiatives where Allison, Adam, and many others, we see each other in so many of the same rooms trying to advance very similar things. As I've gone to other cities and other states, and had conversations about the creative economy work, about creative workforce initiatives. That kind of collaboration really doesn't exist in the way that it does here in California. And I think that's a really special thing about our state.
Yeah, and I also want to flag, Gustavo, that the another interesting thing about the work that we've unpacked is the joint efforts with the arts and culture ecosystem and the arts and entertainment ecosystem. So often those two worlds are separate, and they do have different challenges and different needs. And we've made an intentional effort to try and thread those two worlds together, because we're working on the same cause. So they should not be working in silos as they often are with other work. So
100%.
all right, great. Let me go to the slide. Okay, so California Jobs First is our governor's initiative to really build out sector priorities for the state. And I wanted to highlight this because creative economy was one of the priorities in the strengthened group of priorities. And so with California's Jobs First, the intention is to really make sure that places that we see leveling growth or wages in our legacy sectors that we're known for don't fall behind. And so we have made the cut for the California Jobs First priorities, which is extremely exciting because that means we can continue this work with the support of state government, and really start weaving our efforts and our initiatives and feeding those into the greater plan for the state. Gustavo, I'm going to toss it to you to talk a little bit about our work with the California Arts Council and the Creative Economy Workgroup. This group, just for context for the audience, is a legislated body that Gustavo and Adam are both members of. I'm on the governmental steering committee, but they're the ones who are actually developing a plan to submit to the legislature for what we need to do to maintain and sustain and grow our creative economy in California. So Gustavo, you want to talk through some of these?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. And think that it's just important to share with our group here that there are close to 40 people who are a part of the Creative Economy Working Group, leaders from all across California, who have been meeting regularly from, I think it was all throughout 2024 and now into 2025. The goal is to develop one plan for the creative economy of California. And so this work is ongoing. I think we're scheduled to have a published document sometime in the summer, is my understanding. But what we're sharing with you here are some of the key points that are included within the Creative Economy Plan draft that is circulating. And these meetings are public meetings too. So if anyone here is interested in keeping up to date with those conversations, I'm certain we can drop a link to all of the material and the videos and all of that. But I'll focus on the first three here of priorities of the plan. One is competition, ensuring that California remains competitive in the global creative economy. We are a global capital of the world, and it's just ensuring that we're doing the things from a policy perspective to ensure that we remain competitive. Attraction, this really has to do with what are the things that the state is currently doing to ensure that we're attracting business into the state of California. And so when you see things like the film tax credit in the news and in conversation and all of the advocacy that's happening there, that's a clear example of how California can lead in attracting and retaining business. And then retention, of course, what is the state doing in order to retain the talent within California? We see a lot of news articles referencing that folks are leaving Los Angeles to other regions of California, or are leaving out of the state? What are the things that we can do as a state to ensure that artists and creative workers have the incentives to really retain the talent here within California? And I'll pass it over to Adam to talk on marketability.
Thanks, Gustavo. I think this is really thinking on a lot of different ways. The priority around making sure the work that's done here for maybe audiences more specifically here can be treated in a lot of the same ways that other sectors are. So the governor's office of economic development is constantly taking and folks in different sectors to trade shows all around the globe to make sure the products you're building here in California can find global audiences. I think the idea with the marketability is beginning to think about how creative firms can really do the same thing with their products, goods, wares, that sort of thing. And so beginning to incentivize and bring those folks to trade shows to help navigate kind of building a consumer base that's maybe not just in your neighborhood.
Yeah, and also, thinking about incentivizing the studios to produce work in California, I think is another piece of that. And we have a current joint bill that has been submitted to increase our tax credit program. So I think that's part of this conversation as well, although that's more on the, it's a jobs creation piece of that. So I didn't realize that we didn't really have a bullet for, well, I guess the equity and diversity bullets do speak a little bit to the workforce piece, but ultimately we are California, and equity and diversity are our core values here and will remain core values. And so we intentionally need to make sure that voices of all people are uplifted and heard, and that is and supported in all of this work. So those are two of the major core values that are going to steer and guide this plan. So I'll talk a little bit about my work in K-12, because I think this is a lot of words on the slide, sorry, but I think it's important to know that this isn't just a jobs creation program for adults, and it's not just about the adults, but it's about bringing and backwards mapping all of the work and creating opportunities and avenues for people to see how they can participate. And so the BRIC Foundation and several of the other partners have helped me lead a K-14 education initiative. My lane is K-12, but many of our community college partners have leaned in and really embraced this work, because it's not an age specific target. It's really about building a competency-based system where people know where to go for support. They know where to go for nonprofits that can provide training. They know they can get access to high quality industry training, and they're free and public education through career technical education. So that's really the work I've been doing. And so initially, in the last 5 years, this was kind of the outputs of our 5-year strategic plan. We've established an industry skills framework and built a registered apprenticeship initiative, first ever in this sector. We've established shared definitions around work-based learning and arts, media, and entertainment. And those are all found on the Entertainment Equity Alliance website. We founded the Entertainment Equity Alliance to create a community hub and a base for coalition building. So we'll talk about that in a bit. We've received workforce funding that involves coordinated efforts between government, employer, union, and workforce nonprofits, embracing the High Road Training Partnership model. So there's been 3 High Road Training Partnership initiatives, 1 county and 2 state, that have really funded the jobs creation part of this. And we've established a coalition of service providers, registered apprenticeship programs, and nonprofits, which you can also find on entertainmentequityalliance.org. And then finally, the HRTP program really focuses on mobilizing strategies that increase access to jobs for our historically excluded communities. So a lot of my work is focusing in Title I schools, schools in disinvested communities, and making sure that they have literally the best possible equipment, partnerships, funding to balance out, you know, the challenges faced in those neighborhoods and communities in California. And those students have equal opportunity to access the work we're doing. So Gustavo, I'll toss it to you to talk a little bit about the work of Arts for LA and the Creative Jobs Collective Impact Initiative.
Awesome. And we are in the process of, this will be called the Creative Jobs Collective because it's a really long title. But I'll share with us here that this initiative got started in 2021. And as Allison mentioned, there's a lot of initiatives and efforts that are happening across the state of California. They're all working together. So that much I'll just reemphasize here. But this initiative was created on the heels of COVID, where we were seeing a lot of data, much of which was published by Adam and his team, that was showing the impact on the creative workforce and the reduction that we were seeing at the time, the job loss that we were seeing. And there was a real concern that we had at Arts for LA around how do we ensure that we rebuild with intent and that we rebuild with purpose. As Allison mentioned, equity, inclusivity, representation is important in the state of California, will continue to remain important. And so that was a big value of the Creative Jobs Collective and continues to be, how do we build a more diverse workforce? How do we ensure that wages, particularly living wages, are being offered at that entry level within the field? And so those were the big central values of the Creative Jobs Collective. Since 2021, as you all know, there's been even more impact on the field with as an example, the writers' strikes that we have experienced, and even just as late as January of this year with the wildfires. There have been a lot of surveys that we have been running out in the field and other partners within the community, and that has impacted artists and creative workers too, the wildfires. And so the question of how we continue to build our workforce with intention remains. And so the key 3 goals around the initiative, the Creative Jobs Collective initiative, is to achieve parity between regional demographics and creative workforce representation. We're looking to establish a sector-wide median entry-level wage that is at or above the region's living wage, and then building 10,000 creative sector job placements by the year 2030. And so this work at Arts for LA, we really see ourselves as a backbone organization that is serving a whole coalition of partners. Those partners include the business community, education, research, philanthropy, nonprofit, labor, independent artists, economic development, organizations, and government. All of those folks are at the table working actively to try and solve for how do we build 10,000 creative sector job placements by the year 2030. And this group has developed a set of strategic recommendations that were presented to the LA County Board of Supervisors last year. Those recommendations were voted on and approved and prioritized by the county supervisors. And now we're actively working to advocate for all of those recommendations to become a reality. And one of the big things that we're prioritizing right now is for LA County to fund arts, media, and entertainment high road training partnerships, which I know Allison has talked about. We'll talk about some more in perpetuity, in ongoing investment. And so currently, if you look at the budget that has been presented by the LA County Department of Economic Opportunity, there is a proposed increase of $5 million for AME, Arts, Media, Entertainment, High Road Training Partnership Programming. That is one of the recommendations of the Creative Jobs Collective, and Arts for LA and many partners are advocating for that money to be approved in the final budget of LA County. And the goal is to have that be an ongoing investment year to year And so these are ways in which the initiative is actively working to advance our collective goals. There's a whole another set of goals that I can talk about, and I'll just drop them into the link here so that you can see what some of these recommendations are that this collective has built together.
Thanks, Gustavo. And I do want to emphasize that creative jobs is we understand how broad that is. And we're going to talk through what some of this looks like in reality in a few minutes. But really thinking outside the box is incredibly important in this conversation. We're not talking about your typical studio-based jobs. You know, we want to keep production and all of the amazing sector work in the state. And there's an important opportunity to look in non-traditional lanes for where this work can live. And I think that's what we're going to dive into in a second here. I am not managing chat. I've not looked at it. I can't look at it when I'm sharing my screen. So we will leave 10 minutes at the end for questions and conversations. Gustavo, can you drop in the chat the EEA website? I forgot to do that. No, I think would be great to have as a resource.
You got it. I will drop that in shortly.
Thank you. So the Entertainment Equity Alliance is one of the resources that's outward facing, public facing, that we continue to build from the outputs of these groups. And this is the website will be dropped in the chat, but this is where, you know, yesterday we had some conversations at the industry day at the BRIC Foundation. They're like, we'd love to figure out how we find all the nonprofit arts workforce programs in the state. And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, we've created a community hub. And so this idea is if we build a coalition of folks doing the work, and it's transparent, and individuals know that this is a village, right? And we can create an outward facing website where all of this can live, and it links back to the original places, then we're at least providing some service as the work is continuing. And so EEA has a steering committee that meets monthly. And we have developed working groups that any partners can participate in. And there's a working group around coalition building, making sure every nonprofit or workforce organization in this space knows about what's happening, is able to list their programs on the community-based hub. There's a coalition building initiative and work group. There is a I think we called it uplifting participants group, where we are trying to figure out how to best showcase and put some of the alumni of these programs in front of job opportunities. We have a policy work group. And then every spring, last year was our first inaugural one. There's a huge careers and entertainment expo that we put on in Expo Park. And this year's event is April 25th. And if you are interested in that, please reach out to the EEA website and we will show you how to register. But we have all of our IATSE union partners, many of the entertainment guilds participating, the Coalition of Workforce Programs, several entertainment studio partners. So it's a way that we can actually, you know, and it's set up as a field trip for high school students across LA County, for community college and CSU students. So we're anticipating around 3,000 young people, but it's also for early career professionals. And it's an opportunity to get yourself in a networking environment that's easy to navigate. And so that was the intention, and that's our annual event. Oops, is that it? No, it just linked me to the website when I tried to click out. Dang, okay, sorry about that. And I don't know how to do this because I guess it's this slide is hyperlinked. Who knew? Okay, wait, let me get on here. All right, there we go. So the future jobs, let's project. We have about 5-6 minutes to go through these last couple slides before we take questions. So we want to kind of just quickly share with you some of the things that we are doing to really adapt to the new way of thinking about creative workforce. As to reiterate what Adam shared in the beginning with his data around looking at non-traditional avenues, and how that one slide is my favorite because it really shows the entire ecosystem and where the growth is and where, the big names don't always mean the big opportunities, essentially. So how do we start identifying roles for creatives across different sectors, especially in Los Angeles with in sports and athletics with FIFA and the LA 28, the Olympics coming, like really thinking about how we build those RFPs for providers with a workforce strategy, I think, is top of mind. How do we develop programs with public sector employers? So there's always a need for communications departments for people to create content in public sector. And I'm seeing this emerging in school-based apprenticeship programs with comms departments, right? Employing students to actually develop the social media content, to build it out, to edit it, to make sure that it's professional scale and it's representing those businesses in that case, those school districts, but that can be shared across different agencies. Everyone has a comms department. Thinking about building upskilling and reskilling programs for workers that might have a skill set that's transferable that they never thought about. So we talk with my IOTC colleagues, we talk a lot about, like, during the downtime, is there a way, if you are a grip, you can climb way high and you have the ability to navigate harnesses and things like that. So do linemen, and so do workers in other sectors that might not be entertainment specific, but like legitimately need your skills in that workforce as the industry can, as we wait for the industry to really pick back up. So thinking about like where we can look for those transferable program or skills-based trainings. We are huge proponents of registered apprenticeship. I feel like it is the equity leveler. It is a bipartisan thing. It will sustain beyond some of these other initiatives that are under attack currently. So how do we really promote, expand, and sustain apprenticeships, especially with employers buying in and hiring and understanding the benefits and the both social and financial return on investment? I had an employer tell me yesterday, that's one of our apprenticeship employers, that he's like, he has 19-year-old apprentices, and he said, I don't want someone, I like working with the babies, essentially, because they don't come in with bad habits or preconceived notions. I can really help shape my own workforce to be what it needs to be. And I thought that was a pretty profound awareness. And then focusing on cross-sector occupations like project management and ways that people can leverage their skills in their creative skills in other places. So I'll talk, we're going to talk briefly about the creator economy and how it's growing. And I'm going to toss it to Adam to speak to these last two slides, and then we'll close out for questions.
Sure, I'll try to keep it to my, 2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right, we're gonna go quick. So it's no surprise that, as I mentioned, the average person is on some sort of consumer media about 13 hours a day across all screen types. So media is a big part of our day in lots of different forms. As I mentioned, the creator economy is really growing. I think for a long time, people didn't fully appreciate or think about what that meant. And so if you take the average on a given year, Hollywood creates about 15,000 hours of content. So if you add up all the movies, all the television, all the kind of professionally made Hollywood content, about 15,000 hours a year. YouTube by itself, about 300 million hours are uploaded per year, and 1 billion hours on YouTube are watched every day. And so the platforms are evolving. In a lot of ways, tech has always been changing the way art has been made and distributed. This isn't necessarily anything new. As you can see here, it's not just us saying this. This is a recent Goldman Sachs forecast. And the other thing I would say is creatives are really becoming a kind of independent entrepreneurs in a lot of ways. And you see there's a number of ways people are beginning to monetize work on these non-traditional platforms. I think, again, the working with brands and other folks, someone yesterday said, and I think it's a good point, that the word soap opera came from the fact that soap companies were trying to sell soap, and building that content was that original. Listerine used to do the movie of the week. Like, in some ways, we're coming full circle. You want to go on to the next one in my 30 seconds I have left. Another place we're looking is traditional retailers. So these are both recent examples that I think are very interesting. Home Depot has set up a giant studio in North Carolina. If I was to not tell you where you were, it looks like a film studio like any other here in Los Angeles. They're beginning to think about monetizing the creative work they do for their own retail brands in that studio. Same with Walmart. If you're here in Los Angeles, Walmart's just recently opened their advertising, their big creative studio down in Playa Vista. And so whether it's DIY across these self-serve platforms, things like Substack, Patreon, YouTube, TikTok, all these things, or in sectors that you traditionally wouldn't think of as having a real deep need for the skill sets your students are training on, there's really quite a bit of opportunity, even though the legacy space feels a little dark at the moment here. There's still a lot of growth. And with that, I'll kick it back to you, Allison.
Great, thank you. And that's the last slide in conclusion. Good, we timed it perfectly. I'm gonna stop share. And I'm gonna open the chat and we can start and see what questions live in there and go from there. Let's see. Oh yeah, in terms of, there was a question. I'm just gonna go, I know this is, oh, is somebody answering these? Dang. Okay, the answer is yes to the veteran question. Absolutely. In fact, we are very committed to uplifting our veteran community, and there is no age limit for the apprenticeship. It is a target demographic of 16 to 24 for youth apprenticeship, but apprenticeship is all ages for anyone. So to clear that one, the employers always pay the apprentice wages. There is no wage subsidies in the apprenticeship landscape. There are, there are supportive services, there's costs that are additional to wages, but employers are always responsible for paying for their employees, and an apprentice is an employee of a company. I'm looking for more questions. So while I'm looking, does anyone want to unmute and ask a question? Or does anybody have any questions they want to put in the chat?
Allison, can I just share a quick something? I want to connect back because I listened in to the keynote conversation, the 9 a.m. hour, and Joe, it was Jackie, I think, who really emphasized the importance of building a network. And I want to just emphasize that, double down on that, say it a third time, that for folks who are interested in creative industry, these kind of creative jobs, building your network is so important. So plugging into BRIC Summit, attending their programs, the AME initiatives, attending their programs. Arts for LA does a lot of programs around building your networks with other artists and creative workers. That's so important to getting your foot in the job. And you're getting your first job, getting your foot in the door, and then ultimately then working with those networks to build a career in the arts, because it is a small world at the end of the day. And so I just really want to reemphasize that as a really important point in the creative jobs conversation.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I'm seeing lots of questions about the apprenticeship initiative in the chat, which is great. I will say there's a question about, is it free? Is it remote? It varies. We have multiple programs. Some are in person, some are remote. Some are for live entertainment. Those ones are obviously not remote. Some of the animation, games, and visual effects opportunities are remote. These are California-based apprenticeship programs. So if you are not a California based human, then it's not something that is currently available yet for you to participate in, unless there's some work, what's it called? I forget what it's called, some kind of work thing that you can get. My brain's done. And so there was another question about, is it free to participate? Absolutely. There are application cycles. So somebody said there, I saw a response in the chat saying there's no application. There 100% are applications. Those will be on the BRIC website as they open. Some apprenticeship programs have rolling application cycles. Some are specific to a recruitment timeline. So stay in touch with BRIC via their newsletter, and they will be announcing all of that. What advice do you have for those of us who are in the fields that don't fully exist yet? I do sensor-based interactive multimedia, and often even massive companies will have only one or two of me. Adam, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think that's an example where you're going to have to absolutely look for non-media companies. So National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, governmental, NASA, but also a lot of other kind of manufacturing firms will need folks to do exactly that work. That might be your first step in because that technology is used in a lot of interesting and different ways, and the output might not be, your feature film right off the bat. It might be training materials, it might be analytical video, it might be a whole other thing. But I've actually seen quite a lot of activity around that, not necessarily to your point in at the moment in film and television, but when those industries do take it more seriously, other than Disney, they're going to want to poach from those other places to bring and build those teams. So I think what you can do in adjacent industries will be super important.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we're seeing some of our laid off studio colleagues are moving into immersive and interactive media spaces right now and bringing their expertise. And so I'm seeing the growth in that sector specifically, but more in a smaller studio, small to mid-sized business capacity. I see questions around, so there was a question around unions. Everything we're doing has labor at the table, 100% of it. Labor is in every conversation. We believe deeply that there should be jobs leading to union work. When we're focused on industries that have union representation, obviously not all industries do. So that is something that is important to note, is where when we can, we do involve the union, and they're actually in conversations even in our non-union industries to how do we make these jobs good jobs for people, living wage jobs, family sustaining jobs. That's top of mind with our work. Question around teaching students in pre-apprenticeship and digital badges. Hi, Larry. Yes, the digital badge program is being built out right now. That is a definite priority for us. We have been actively working with all the apprenticeship programs to establish, is for those of you in the career technical education landscape, industry recognized credentials or certifications are very important, and this industry has not really had a lot of them that are based on skills. We have, certifications for software and whatnot. So BRIC Foundation, in partnership with all of the apprenticeship partners, are building a badging platform specific to the occupations that they support for apprenticeship. So in terms of the tech art badge, I'm not sure what the ETA is on that. For apprenticeship, someone mentioned they are possibly on location or hybrid. Tracks like production, concept, or storyboarding. Do they tend to lean more on site? It just depends on the employer. I can drop the link to the thing in the chat, the presentation in the chat, when I'm not talking. Let me see if there's any more questions before I do that. I just can't multitask. Did I get them all, guys? Oh, for apprenticeship track, we would need a digital portfolio submission. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm going to say just isn't, there's a lot more, BRIC has a lot more information on this, but we do professional portfolio workshops at the AME Institute. So if you're an educator that is teaching this stuff, I highly recommend you attend that professional development conference in Burbank. We all have a 3-hour session on the apprenticeship initiative and how to map in education. And that conference is in June in Burbank. I also really would like to, yeah, AME stands for Arts, Media, and Entertainment, not engineering. And yes, so just to clarify that. If there's an interest in joining EEA, please submit your program. Any organization is open to be listed on the Community Program Hub. So if you know of organizations, somebody mentioned in the chat, the Big BRIC Foundation, great. Please invite them to join the Community Hub if they're a California-based workforce training program. Again, a lot of the work we're doing is centered in California, specifically for the people here that we serve. All right, so we're at time. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the presentation in the chat. Give me 1 second.
Allison, can I say one last thing?
Oh yeah,
here?
please do. Please do.
As mentioned earlier, there is ongoing advocacy that's happening right now in Los Angeles County to ensure that $5 million in additional high road training partnership is included in the LA County budget. That would be available money for arts, media, and entertainment high road training program. And so I'm going to drop a link in here if y'all are interested in being a part of those actions. Please click on this link and it'll lead you to the action base.
Yeah, and the last thing I'm going to drop in is I wonder if we have a how to register for the expo on the expo page. Let me see. I don't know if we post. Please, here's the last year's Careers and Entertainment Expo. Here's the link to the expo page. If you want to reach out to the Entertainment Equity Alliance, see there's a contact us button. Please reach out to that. Oops, I just do. Please reach out to that specific button to attend the expo. We do need a waiver form, so you can't just like show up. So just making sure that you have the link right now. And this will also, gosh, I can't talk and do anything. Sorry, people. It's just not my strong suit. Just shut up and do that. Okay. So I also want to put a link to the community hub I've been mentioning. So if you do have a program that you feel should be public and you want to share, please feel free to add it to our community hub. There's an add your program page. All right. And at that, we are completing our presentation for the day and appreciate y'all here and enjoy the rest of your BRIC Summit. Thank you. Oh, and fill out the review thing because I put it in there like 4,000 times. If you're still here hanging on, they really want your feedback. Oh, good. I see all your links, Gustavo. I'm just going back through.
I'm going to have to hop here because I have to take
too.
a quick
No,
11.
we're leaving. We're out.
Bye.
So good to see y'all.
Good to see y'all. Bye.
Bye.